So Ukraine is beating down a very important path right now, and that is that they are working on generating their own weapons production capability in-house in Ukraine, so they're not dependent on the West. Now, this will serve two purposes. One, in the short term, as they fight Russia, it'll help arm them, but they're also going to be maybe the low-cost provider for many weapons defense contractors around the world who will be locating themselves in Ukraine in the short term, and then in the longer run this will be a great source for them. So they're kind of getting a twofer out of this. It's a very smart strategy if they can keep themselves from being bombed by Russia in the process. This was on UATV in English, and I think it's worth watching so that you can get a sense of what's actually going on.
During the first International Forum of Defense Industries, which was held in Kyiv on September 29th, President of Ukraine Volodymyr Zelensky spoke about the basics of cooperation with global manufacturers of modern weapons. The creation of an alliance of defense industries is an opportunity for the Ukrainian military-industrial complex to attract foreign investment.
Right, okay, so it's foreign investment, it's arming themselves, it's setting themselves up for a post-war recovery when they have this as a manufacturing base for weapons for other places in the world. And they're going to be, okay, so the powers in the Ukrainian government right now are probably leading experts on what weapons do what where. I mean, compared to other places around the world, they have gotten themselves up to speed in a quick way over the last year and a half, and they know what they need to provide themselves, what their partners are providing, and where the gaps are. So this is really, really smart.
What should come to us are precisely those whom we did not have. These are the Germans. Rheinmetall is the largest manufacturer of defense equipment for the ground forces. It announced these plans quite a long time ago, that they want to build factories in Ukraine. That is a very serious and very large investment.
Construction.
Okay, so it's a serious and a large investment, but you also have to keep Russia from finding out where that factory is and bombing it. So, there is a risk to this by putting it inside Ukraine, where if it was just over the border in another country, say Poland, it wouldn't be nearly as risky. But again, it's this or that. Here we're talking about Bayraktar now.
Of the Baykar plant has already begun in Ukraine. According to the General Director Haluk Bayraktar, there are plans to create at least 300 jobs. The production of drones will be self-sufficient, environmentally friendly and mutually beneficial for Ukraine and Turkey. The company intends to invest $100 million. The money will go towards 3 projects, including the plant. It is planned to be built in a year and a half.
We are here to support you as much as possible. We respect your struggle for freedom and independence, for the preservation of your sovereignty. We also face some challenges. This is the supply chain, the sourcing and development of human capital through the impact of war, and the regulatory environment, especially those rules that will support these investments. Haluk Bayraktar, CEO of Bayraktar, from an article in the Focus publication.
Okay, now Bayraktar that's the drones. I remember they crowdfunded a number of drones. Different countries did this. Lithuania did in a matter of days. I think Poland did. Some other places did as well. I want to say Estonia, but I'm not sure if that's correct. But they were one of the first companies to do this, to enter Ukraine and set up shop in Ukraine, and that's really good. The other reason that this is really good is because when the U.S. gives certain weapons, they say there are strings attached. You can't go invading, using that to go shoot up Russia. But if they're homegrown weapons, they can. So this is an important step forward for them.
According to the President of Ukraine, Volodymyr Zelensky, a special defense fund will be created in Ukraine, which will finance the production of weapons. Money for the fund, in particular, will be taken from Russian assets confiscated in the West. During the forum, the Alliance of Defense Industries was created, which already included 13 members. The first step is the basic declaration of the Defense Industry Alliance, which was signed by 38 arms manufacturers from 19 countries.
Yeah, 38 arms manufacturers from 19 countries. And that's telling that's a telling statistic, because like that's saying you got a lot of faith that this is going to be not just a short-term thing but a long-term thing. Look at what they're saying, that they're betting on Ukraine to actually win, because if they set up shop and Russia takes like more ground and takes over their factories, they lose it, right? So they're thinking through things. Russia's saying that they're not going to stop. Look at the last couple videos that I did about Solyov and the other Russian propagandist who was saying Russia's going to keep going, and they're admitting that now. So I think this is a good step forward in multiple ways, but it also shows that they have faith in Ukraine.
Our manufacturers signed 20 documents with partner companies at the forum, agreements, memorandums. Each such document then becomes a new production or a strengthening of existing cooperation. These are agreements on joint production. This is the exchange of technologies. These are the supplies of components, production of gunpowder, production of ammunition. This is training personnel for our defense industry. Separately and very carefully, we are developing the Ukrainian production of drones, ground and sea autonomous systems.
Okay, so they have already talked about drones. Like they went from almost no drone manufacturers to producing hundreds of drones in-house, thousands of drones in-house over the course of the year. I talked about that in previous videos. But other arms, like just simple artillery shells, which, there's lots of news about how the West only has so many artillery shells for them and they're not on a war footing. Okay, well, they can produce artillery shells in-house here. And it's a perfect marriage because they have plenty of money to support the development and production of this, and these companies want to provide it and set up shop here. So it's going to work out, I think, fairly well, as long as they can keep themselves from being attacked by Russian rockets.
Minister of Defense of Ukraine, Rustem Umerov, speaking about the development of the domestic military-industrial complex, noted that Ukraine's vision is to develop world-class military products and services.
Now there are several directions regarding the military-industrial complex. Our vision is to develop world-class military products and services. I'm talking about the defense industry now. Rustem Umerov, Minister of Defense of Ukraine, from Materials of Interfax Ukraine.
The military-industrial complex of Ukraine is developing, and the defense alliance is a prospect for strengthening Ukraine's defense even after the end of the war. According to experts, it is important to expand the range of weapons provided to Ukraine.
And that's another point. So you have not just the short term, you have the long term, you have it's going to stabilize the economy on the backside, it's showing faith in it, but they're also getting to maybe change some of the armaments in ways that will customize for what they need in Ukraine, and that's not nothing. That's pretty significant.
Ukraine.
For example, we have a self-propelled artillery unit, Bogdana. This could be a prime example of this kind of collaboration. It is on a wheeled cases, a caliber 155 artillery mount. It can be varied. In turn, France has its own high-effective Caesar self-propelled artillery mount. They are very similar to each other, and we need to improve our Bogdana so that it reaches the level of Caesar and at some point is ahead in its parameters. However, for this, we need to use Western-style technologies.
According to experts, international companies are ready to invest in the defense complex of Ukraine. This means that the level of the military-industrial complex of Ukraine in the near future will reach NATO standards. Reported by Sergey Kulas, Victoria Smirnova, UATV News.
So I find all of that very encouraging. It's encouraging because money flows where things are going well, where it's going to grow, right? And they're betting on that. That tells me that they don't think that Russia is going to prevail and that it's worth setting up shop. I think it's good for that reason. I think it's good for the acute crisis right now. I think it's good for long-term investment. This was just, what I was seeing was a very encouraging message through here about what the future holds for Ukraine. Tell me what you thought. I'm curious to hear your reaction to that. The only danger that I see is, of course, they're going to have to protect these factories. Maybe they're going to have some kind of rocket defense around the factories, but they're going to have to keep them quiet, I guess, of where they are, or keep them so small that if they hit a little factory here, it's not, downing all production for, maybe they'll have decentralized factories or something, like they had the points of invincibility, the little nodes all across major cities where people could get warm. Maybe it'll be something like that. I don't know. What are your thoughts? I'd love to hear it. Thank you for your time. Thank you for the likes, the shares, the subscribes, and the coffees. And thank you most of all for being the kind of person that cares about Ukraine.